Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Magic and Miracles Entrepreneur, where we discuss entrepreneurial subjects as well as psychology. Hello, my name is Anna, and I created Magic and Miracles to help people manifest their dreams, to become the golden Buddha that they really internally are, and to shed all of that nonsense that you've picked up from Mama Drama Panorama, I call it, all of the experiences that you went through, all of the people that hung their own bullshit on you. It's time to get rid of that and become your supernatural, super extraordinary, magnificent golden Buddha. So I offer coaching. All the info is below. First session is a mandatory session for us to establish that we simply can work well together. But upon conclusion of that said session, you will need to book the signature package. The 2 to 3 months that I recommend in this package will revolutionize your life, provided you will show up ready to rock and roll and really work. I cannot do your push-ups for you, and that you follow my guidance, you don't rebuttal me. Those people who have succeeded enormously and quantum leap themselves to another timeline where they're doing way better than before, at the very least, have calmed down, their energy shifted, and of course the manifestations does follow, whether that's SP, money, career, what have you. And they never forget, again, with all the tools that I teach them energy work as well, which goes into every department of your life. There's a signature energy course as well. All the links are below, as I've mentioned, to prep you for your next level, for your next quantum leap, to really revolutionize your life, and again, to never forget how you did it. So if you have any questions as far as the coaching goes, all the links are below. So for whatever reason, I'm inspired to record another audio on narcissists, because today somebody asked me, so how do you recognize a narcissist? And it's a really good question. It isn't that hard. I think for an empath, it's really important to pay attention and not excuse things. Because I used to be one like that in my 20s, where I clearly saw and clearly felt all the signs there, all the intuition screaming in my face, but the logical mind taking over and me explaining shit away. Don't do that. That would be job one. But here's how to recognize a narcissist. So first thing, understand, a narcissist, and we're going to talk about really malignant narcissists here. There's a spectrum. I want to make you aware, unless you're already aware. Each mental disease, because this is a mental disease, comes on a spectrum. So which means in the worst case possible scenario, it's a catastrophic psychopath, essentially. Although I do not have a degree in psychology, I have taken many psychology classes. So the catastrophic end of it is really just being psychotic and completely having lost touch with reality, and where does the lie begins that they told, or what they actually believe, who the fuck knows anymore. And they really don't care, what they have to do to destroy another person, okay? Because that's just how miserable they are. And I get, it's like every mental disease, the older you get, the worse it gets. And you will find it true in your own lives, maybe a parent, maybe a sister, maybe this, maybe that, maybe somebody. At the very other end, you could be still a narcissist and you can have narcissistic traits. And clearly, they're demonstrative and all of that. And of course, they're covert narcissists and all that jazz. But they're not really harming other people, other than being maybe braggadocious, maybe a little too much into themselves, maybe even an asshole, but they're not really going out of their way to harm anybody. All right? So we're going to talk about the malignant ones, the ones to really watch out for. And first I want to say, any kind of a narcissist, and in its worst scenario, the malignant narcissists are really miserable people, as I said already. Just understand that from the get-go. They're really crying out for help inside. At the same time, though, they desperately want to convince everybody around them that everything's fine. They want to maintain this facade of picture perfect person with picture perfect qualities that doesn't actually exist. It's borrowed from many different people. There isn't actually an identity of this person. They don't know who they are. They're empty and shallow inside. Okay, so that's how miserable they are. They don't have this core that, let's just say, an empath has, this connection to to their higher self. So the narcissist then is envious of just about anybody, especially of people who are really ambitious, really strong, who really have a strong core. And they choose and select these people who they admire slash hate, right, to emulate and yet, badmouth. It's really confusing. I know it's a really mentally, kind of like disturbing situation. And want to attempt to bring that person down. Even a person, let's just, doesn't have to be an overachiever of any kind or CEO of any kind or anything like that. Just has to be a person that's really strong internally, really has a strong connection to the higher self, because they don't have that connection. They want to desperately shake you out of it just so they could see, for no other reason other than to bring you down to their level. And so their sole purpose is for you to lose contact with your higher self, for you to lose ground under your feet, for you to lose the confidence, for you to start doubting who you are. All right? Don't give them that. Listen, they always go for people who appear to be vulnerable. And vulnerability is not the same thing in our vocabulary as it is in a narcissist vocabulary. What they perceive as being vulnerable is kindness, is being nice. So what a lot of narcissists actually end up doing, parenthesis here, is they choose a kind person who's, kind to them, accommodating, etc. They take that kindness for weakness, for vulnerability, because, excuse me, they know all about themselves. They know what a snake they are. They know what a catastrophic person they are. And so they, take that for granted, not once stopping to think, that's how stupid they are, not once stopping to think that, what if I'm wrong? What if I'm wrong that I cannot break this person? What if I'm wrong that kindness means vulnerability? What if I'm how about all these other fucking times I was wrong? I'm speaking for the narcissist, when I chose to fuck somebody over and then life, at the very least, gave me back the karma that bit me in my ass. Okay, they don't do this computing, this deduction, this processing. None of this exists in their world. Okay, and what's scary is a lot of them are in the metaphysical community, in the so-called manifestation community. There is no process going on in their mind. It's just a facade. So what they end up doing a lot of the time is the catastrophic misjudgment on their part of looking at a kind and sweet person, let's just say, and then taking them for granted and fucking them over, not realizing that the universal laws, will work in the favor of the sweet and kind person. Okay, so that's parenthesis closed. How to recognize a narcissist is quite easy. Number one, again, they seek out a vulnerable person and they charm them as much as they can. As much as they can, they take their best shot at mirroring that person and suddenly being interested, ultra interested in all those other things that, that other person is interested in. Kind of like a love bombing situation, if you will. Sometimes it's not that apparent. But example being, if somebody tells you, oh, no, I love all about that, or I know all about your work, or, just agreeing with everything and kind of like a little bit too much. Let's just, a normal person doesn't need to like say yes to every 5 seconds to everything. So it will appear a little bit fake, because it is fake, because it's a little bit alarming, the kind of attention you get in the beginning, and how like desperately they're trying hard to for them, for you to like them and all of that. So that's kind of red flag number one. And this is where most people will go, well, this person is just trying to be sweet, and they're not really, I mean, that's the last thing they will probably think. A normal person would probably think, just, yeah, they're trying to be sweet, whatever, probably trying to just be nice. But once they have your trust, and now they have you kind of comfortable, the red flags then increase. Okay, because there's only for such a long time, not very long at all, if you're really paying attention. You got to pay attention to what they're telling you. Narcissists, like all people, tell on themselves all the time. How so? If you listen to them close enough, they will tell you all about them. Every person does it. Psychologically, it's impossible not to tell on yourself, because it's what you talk about. It's your fears, it's your insecurities, it's what you're thinking about at that moment, whatever. Once you're comfortable with somebody, you tend to overlook certain things. With a narcissist, it's going to be very apparent the kind of information they're going to start sharing with you, that it doesn't sound right, but you just can't put your finger on it. There'll be a story, let's just say, that obviously is just being told from their perspective only. You don't know the other side, person's side. So the way that they will tell you the story and then subsequently change it 15 times over, each time will be a different interpretation, just won't add up. That's one of the red flags. Just, it will not make any sense. When they're telling the story, it's like, really? Like, I bet you money something else happened, because what you're telling me right now just does not make any sense. But, and another one, if you challenge them in the manner that I just described, they will start getting really pissed off. That's I think that should be number one. If you challenge them on anything, but I mean anything, if you make a little comment, doesn't matter how benevolent, how kindly put or anything, any kind of thing that you tell them that could be interpreted as criticism, or just disagreement, or just a comment, anything other than, oh, that's so great, you're so great, that kind of deal. Anything that's a deviation from praise, and anything that is a disagreement, because that's their weakness. They're really troubled inside. They constantly need public approval and applause and how great you are and look how pretty, because inside they feel ugly. Inside they know how monstrous they really are. So to forget about that, they desperately seek this fake kind of like applause. They will do just about anything, any crazy thing, down to a criminal thing. And I've seen this over and over in my life, where a narcissist can literally lose their shit, start committing crime, just to fill that void of, again, applause and taking shit and stealing shit and, doing all sorts of crazy shit, just to fill that void, not to confront themselves, not to do the work on themselves, because they want to continue pretending, even though everybody around them already knows, for a long time now, that they're crazy, they need help, that they're not okay. They want to continue stubbornly, tone deaf, completely pretending that everything is fine, that they're right and nothing is wrong. It looks so weird. It looks so bizarre. It's so bizarre. I mean, but then again, mental illness, right? And a very destructive one. So that's another red flag. When you disagree with them, they're going to go apeshit on you. And like I said, even things that you don't mean to be antagonistic at all. Just a commentary, just a point of view, just an expression, just a kind of like a conversation, not for a second thinking that you're disrespecting them in any way. They will blow up. It's crazy. It's literally crazy. So again, if you encounter this kind of a crazy reaction or an overreaction, Another one, not respecting rules, not respecting boundaries, not respecting another person's anything, house, business, money, nothing. They don't care. Oh, they'll tell you how much they care for you, if they will, if that's the role that they choose to play that day that somehow benefits them. But behind your back, they don't give a flying fuck. In fact, they're plotting something, and that's another thing. Make no mistake, every narcissist, they're either using you for something, they plan to use you for something, or like in the process of kind of like constructing an idea, what they're there to use you. Period. The end. They see you like a transaction. They're there to take, they're there to steal, they're there to cheat, they're there to deplete. Okay, they're like a disease, they're walking around, they don't know who to like latch on to because nobody wants them. They know how undesirable they are. They know it. They know that the problem is them. I mean, underneath it all, they do know it. That's why they're so miserable. But to accept that they're flawed, in quotations, and do the actual work or of inner work, that would mean they're imperfect. So to them, it's like they popped out and everything is fine and everything continues to be fine for the rest of the life. They alone do not need to do any inner work. That's what they're thinking underneath it all. Trust me, I'm telling you. And so they're judging the world based on this completely flawed proposition that, everything just has to be ever so perfect. And if something is not perfect, then it's bad. Okay, then it's like you failed, or these kinds of fucking pronouncements. It's very present with narcissists. Like any deviation from all the time applause and congratulations and victories and this kind of hyperventilating after the approval, any kind of deviation from that is a failure in their eyes. And therefore, when they're looking around the world and they're judging other people, that's the same judgments they have for them. And they're bewildered why the other person doesn't feel like the way that they do. Because they're normal. Because they understand life is ups and downs. But in a narcissist world, again, they want to hide away from their inner void, complete and utter void, so much that any reminder from the outside how much work they're not doing on themselves and how completely destructive they're being, it has to be rejected, because that's a reminder of who they really are inside. So they're there to use you, and they won't make it apparent, at least not in the beginning, what they want from you. Sometimes it is apparent, depends on the situation, but they will masquerade as something else completely, as your friend, essentially, as somebody who wishes you well and blah, blah, blah. Maybe even your lover, what have you, whatever kind of situation. And then it becomes very shortly into it, when they feel again like they're comfortable and they've gained your trust, all of these red flags come through and it becomes self-apparent what they're there to actually do, if you're paying attention. And again, in a situation like this, when you feel the discomfort inside of your intuition, and your intuition simply tells you, gosh, this person, now several times I've had this encounter with them where they did something clearly that was not to my benefit, and they knew that. They deliberately overstepped that boundary, that respect, that rule, and they did it anyway. And to my face, they're telling me another story, but behind my back, they're clearly taking action in the completely opposite direction. That's another giveaway. Why the double talk? Because they have an agenda. They're not there to be your friend. Obviously, because actions speak much louder than words. So in other words, if somebody continues to like sing you praises, but in actuality, they're really disrespecting you. They're not respecting your time. They're not respecting the rules. They're not respecting your boundaries. They're not respecting anything about you again. This is not a friend. This is an enemy. It's jealousy. It's wanting to find out how you do what you do. It's just mere trying to understand even how to be human. Because remember, honestly, they're not really human. They're mimicking humans, is that they're so monstrous inside, they don't even know how to be human effortlessly. Everything has to be borrowed, everything has to be mimicked, because they don't have anything of their own. But nothing. And then eventually you will know their arsenal of stories, of reference. It's very limited. Oh, that's another thing. How could I have forgotten? Their vocabulary, not for nothing, but I don't care how wealthy or not wealthy you are, or who you are and how old you are. A narcissist has a really limited vocabulary. This is why they constantly have to borrow somebody else's. And it's not necessarily because they're not well read, although that could be the case as well, because they're not deep people. They're not deep thinkers, okay? Let's be real. If they are reading, it's just to show, for show, just, to mention this author or that author. Not a lot of thought goes behind it usually. It's just, again, to be popular at a party or somewhere, socially in public, and to impress people with a bunch of words they don't even know what the fuck they mean, okay? And if you really if you study them, it's literally like they go into it's kind of, you press the button and that word comes out or that phrase comes out. It's just so fucking pre-rehearsed. None of it is authentic and none of it is real. And by a certain point, if you observe them long enough, you will recognize their arsenal, the very fucking limited arsenal of, one, emotions, and two, vocabulary. Very poor vocabulary. Very, very poor vocabulary. And the other thing is not a lot of emotional depth. Not at all. No empathy whatsoever. No emotion. No, nah, nah. Not even being able to connect person to person. Not able. They don't have any empathy, so they're not able to connect to another human being and feel what they feel, because they're robots. They're very calculating. They're there to just kind of lie, steal, and cheat. Another one, not for nothing, all right? Narcissists are usually really trashy. Really trashy, tasteless, really ugh. Their taste in anything, even if they have money, is so fucking tacky, is so fucking trashy, trash galore. Ew, the food that they eat and the way they dress and what, just, ugh. I've yet to meet a narcissist who has good taste, literally. Okay, they may think they have good taste. They don't. Really, they don't. So trashy. It just reeks of trashiness galore. I don't know how else to say it. I can think of at least 5 or 6 examples right now in my head. They just don't know what actual luxury looks like. They don't know what actual style looks like. They're just screaming for attention constantly. And it turns out so fucking pathetic. Another one, if you in conversation with a narcissist and you don't know that it's a narcissist yet, let's just say, but you're discovering this person, and let's just say they tell you stories about their exes, if it's a specific person, or other work-related acquaintances or partners, etc. Basically relationships in the past, right? And that every single person from the past is somehow to blame for the disruption of that relationship, as per them. So not one person from the past stayed in their life. That's one red flag. And that each and every single instance, they have a version of a story, and it's a version of a story. What else? That it's the other person who's to blame. Not once taking responsibility for the breakdown of a relationship, a single relationship. And always having some monstrous story that sounds so overblown, again, disproportionately, and always changing. If you'll pay attention, you will hear the discrepancies. It changes all the time, because who the fuck can keep up with so many lies? Like I said, they're so fucking confused. They don't even know which side is up anymore, right? So That's another big time giveaway. Like a normal person will tell you, that relationship, yeah, I was just not ready. I was in a place of this and that and the other. Like honestly, right? Talking, if that's, taking responsibility, basically like a normal, mature adult does. It doesn't exist with a narcissist. Everything is somebody else's fucking blame. Everything is somebody else's fault, and it's always like, poor me, it's their problem. They are the problem and they're the problem. But wait a minute, what about all these other things that you did to this person? Let's just say you end up finding out and you confront them. Oh, they will twist it all around and it still won't be their fault. So in other words, like, none of the things that happen to them, not only do they not learn from it, but they actually have the audacity to blame the very person that they caused harm to. It's totally twisted, but it's like, the more they complain about the person, rest assured that they're actually harming that person or have harmed that person in the past more than you will ever know. Okay? If they don't have a lot of bad things to say about somebody, it's simply because they haven't gotten a chance to harm that person enough, so that they don't have to come up with all this mumbo jumbo to cover up the actual truth that they did wreak havoc on that person. And this is why the person is either not talking to them or is suffering right now. Okay. And lastly, but certainly not least, and I can go on forever, but these are pretty good pointers and I don't want to make it too long, is that narcissists are pathological liars. You catch them in one lie, rest assured everything else is a lie. I mean, I don't mean just any lie. I mean like a significant lie, you know? Like a lie, like it's a lie. Like you have proof on paper, black on white kind of lie. Like, you told me your name was this and it's actually that. Or something very significant, like you told me this never happened, but it actually did. Something that would change your mind about them, you know? If you get it, let's just say as an example, if you get to talk to a person from their past, which I've done that, you will, I mean, I'm pretty sure you'll be amazed and shocked at how the discrepancy of the real story versus their story. I mean, I'm not saying, taking sides, but just the discrepancy of it, from the story that the other party's telling and what the narcissist is telling, diametrically opposed. Completely diametrically opposed and backed up by facts, again, on paper, black on white. And you catch them in this lie, believe it. This person is crazy. They're going to lie about you just like they lied about that person. They're going to try to destroy your life. They don't have friends. They don't know how to be friendly. They don't know how to have friends. They don't know how to have relationships. They're just, like I said, they're just there to use people and abuse people. It doesn't interest them to have good, well-formed relationships. That's not their interest. They're there for themselves only. And so if you catch them in one lie, everything else is a lie. If it doesn't, especially if it's so completely in your face fake, it is fake. It's just, take it for me. It's fake and everything else is a lie. And rest assured, they're there to harm you just like they harmed that person, no matter what they say to you in your face. So quite a dangerous combination. But again, pay attention to your intuition. Don't give people too many breaks. Like, they fuck up one time in a big way. I mean, these are pretty big things. Lying, okay, doing something behind your back, trying to bring down your confidence. Forgot to mention that. Once they get comfortable, they start making certain comments to disrupt your peace, to start, maybe bringing you down, bringing your confidence down, start to make you doubt yourself. All to get in and start getting control of that situation. A good person, again, a good friend or a good anybody doesn't do that to tear anybody down. Doesn't take from another person. Doesn't blame the entire world for what they've done themselves. It's nuts. It's bananas. But your intuition will tell you, and you should really listen. and you should pay attention. What is the person talking about? How are they talking about other people? What do they choose to say about themselves? Do their stories make sense? Or does it sound so fucking fabricated? It's so in your face, it's ridiculous to ignore. What's their track record, quite frankly? All right. What's their history like? What are they saying about their past relationships, and how did those relationships end? And how many do they still kind of are in touch with? Like, not one relationship survived from the past. That's a red flag. That's a huge red flag. And I think finally I will conclude with this. I think narcissists' biggest fuck up and frustration, okay, is just like I said, bumping into a good, kind person, of which there are many in this world, I believe, and taking their kindness and sweetness for vulnerability, for weakness. But the other fuck up, which is even worse and even more demonstrative of who they really are, how ugly and monstrous they really are inside, the malignant narcissist, is that they try the tricks on an empath usually, who, wants to be kind and wants to treat them nicely, but they try the tricks on an empath to shake their confidence, to destroy their connection to the higher self, the tricks that would have worked on the narcissist. Pay attention to what I'm telling you right now. They try the tricks that would have worked on themselves because their fucking confidence is non-existent. And they're very, very frustrated when those tricks don't work because they're, flabbergasted. Like, how could this be? This vulnerable, in their mind, weak person, so kind and so jolly, my tricks of damaging their self-esteem don't work. How is it so? Because, my darling, that's a whole other energy. A kind and sweet person is protected by the universe, knows their value, hopefully, and if not, they'll find out. Even through that experience, they will find out. But the fact that they're connected to the universal power and choose not to harm another person is their protection from any kind of gimmicks that a narcissist will throw themselves. And this is what a narcissist completely misses. They fuck themselves up the ass each and every single time, going against good, nice people, not realizing how much protection is behind those people and how much protection the narcissists themselves do not have, and how much karma the bill keeps adding up, don't it? From the past karma on all those other people from the past that they've done wrong. Oh, don't worry, the list is long as fuck. And that karma keeps building up, and they, again, not only do not learn, but continue accumulating the tab that will eventually be like a rapture. Something will happen in this narcissist's life that will completely destroy them. And this is kind of like the tale of every narcissist, basically, because they're stupid, like I said. So basically, I want to demystify it. On my channel, this is my role, to demystify this bullshit and catch it early on. Just trust your intuition, as I've said, and don't question it. Yes, give them give this person the benefit of the doubt. But on the second strike, darling, they should be out. That's it. Thank you very much for listening. Until next time. Ciao, ciao.